Hello, I'm Michael Jacoby, executive producer of Jazz on the Plaz and host of Raising the Standards on KSCO Radio. Welcome to Jazz Tonight. Fun show today. Once a year when we have the Monterey Jazz Festival County High School All-Stars at Jazz on the Plaz, since they drive up late in the day, there's no artist to talk to. So we always like to spend a half an hour with our sponsor, and we're always very grateful for that. With me, old pal John Markum. How are you, buddy?
Pleasure to be here.
General manager of the Willow Street Pizza and Tap Room in Willow Glen. Mm-hmm. Of course, our sponsor this year are the Willow Street family of restaurants, which includes Willow Street Los Gatos, yourself in Willow Glen, and Main Street Burgers in both Willow Glen and Los Gatos.
Yep.
That having been said, give me a little overview of what makes you guys different from Los Gatos.
So obviously both restaurants have been around for over 25 years. The location we're in Willow Glen is the original Willow Street Pizza that started 28 years ago. Over the last 9 months or so, we've begun to explore and experiment and have some fun with the concept there. Of course, we built our reputation on wood fire brick oven pizzas, which we still do great at. But here recently, we've begun to expand and take advantage of the popularity of craft beers. And I don't know if you know this, but there are 7,000 craft breweries in the United States.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, well, 1,000 of them are right here in California. Yeah. So we just realized that there was a great opportunity to kind of explore the fan favorite beers and a lot of great breweries that are around us in particular. And so we've begun doing that and doing some pub food that goes along with it.
Yeah, talk just a second about the pub food, because it's terrific, and it's a little different. The menu's been tweaked a little bit from here in Los Gatos.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different from the Los Gatos menu. Still most of the favorites that if you've been coming to Willow Street for a generation, you'll still find most of the things that you used to love. But in particular, for instance, this Thursday we're having a tap takeover with North Coast Brewery out of Fort Bragg.
Now you do that every month, right?
Yes, we do one every month, usually the second Thursday of the month. Okay. And like to...
What does that entail, a tap takeover?
Well, generally we feature 4 different beers from that brewery, try to show a good variety of what their brewery showcases. We have reps from that brewery come so that our guests can interact with them, ask questions, and kind of find out what's unique about their beer and their brewery. But we also do food and flight pairings with those offerings also. Okay. And that's a lot of work on our end to kind of play with the flavors of the beer and either complement or contrast some of those flavors in neat and fun ways, so the people can kind of really appreciate what, not just what's in the glass, but what's on the plate as well.
The advent of beer and craft beer pairings with food, it's relatively new. I mean, 10, 15 years?
Well, the popularity of it has certainly been, like you said.
Done. But
yes. I mean, there's a lot of people that actually believe, a lot of, historians that believe that beer actually predates wine in terms of our, anthropology, if you will.
So it did in my life.
Just before your time.
I mean, when you're 12, we're going to get wine. That's the problem.
But yeah, here the last 10, 15, 20 years maybe, it's become more and more of a thing. And there's just been a much greater appreciation to the craftsmanship that really there's a long history to. And here recently, it's just taken off. And so
now, what is your experience? I mean, for instance, you're a little young, but the 80s and 90s were martinis, when martinis and cocktails really made a comeback.
Yes.
Craft beers, it's been, as you say, probably since early 2000s, have really come on.
Yes, that's true. That's true. And really the recent kind of explosion, it's funny, some of the beers that you probably wouldn't even think of as like the front runners of craft brewing are really, some macro breweries now. Like so Samuel Adams, everybody knows of Samuel Adams. You probably see it on tap in most of the chain restaurants that you might go to.
Is it like independent film studios? Is it Budweiser? Do they have a craft beer section?
Not one that I can think of nor recommend.
or any of the major players other than Samuel Adams? Anybody?
So here in California, there are a lot of independent breweries that pride themselves in remaining independent. Obviously, there's an economy to this too, and so brewery owners have to make wise decisions about, is it smart for me to link my my program up to a larger budget, a larger distribution, or do I want to pride myself in remaining independently operated? And a lot of California breweries have kept that label. There's not a right or wrong in my opinion. It's just a this or that.
From a consumer standpoint, and you being a beer drinker, as you say, a connoisseur, we used to have a different phrase for that, but you're kind of,
it sounds way more classier.
Used to be rummy, as I remember. But do you find yourself rather going to a place like ours? I'm not just saying Willow Street, but as opposed to a brewery, because to go to a brewery, you're kind of locked into them, right?
Yes. So here's the thing that you'll find is that there are lots of different kind of venues that you can go to. So for instance, if you go not even far from where our restaurant's located, you'll find Hermitage Brewing, which we have one of their beers that we'll get into later. You'll also find Santa Clara Valley Brewing. Those places are pouring just their beers, and rightly so, and they're proud of what they make.
Sure.
And it's a great experience. You can go and literally interact with the people who are making the beer on site, which is why we do the tap takeovers that we have at our place. There's other places. So Hoppus is just around the corner from us. They're a brew pub. They brew their own beer and sell their own beer on site, and they do a great thing. They have a wonderful product.
Right.
But if you want to go somewhere that has a little bit from other places, that's able to bring in multiple breweries and what they're proud to put on draft, then places like Willow Street Pizza and Tap Room is where you want to go and try different things and have a flight of multiple things from different places.
All right, let's talk about it. This isn't a misconception, but it's certainly a lot of people know the acronym, but not really know what it means.
Okay.
IPA.
Right, exactly. So IPA stands for India Pale Ale. It has a long history, actually. It's kind of a recent thing here in the United States in the last 20 years or so, and really become popular. Really became popular here in California. Now the East Coast has.
Was it a derivation of India?
So the name India Pale Ale was it
Came
actually
from the English sailors, didn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
So what happened was they had pale ales that were heavily hopped, not as much as an IPA as we think of today. But by the time they were shipping it to royalty or dignitaries or even higher military officials in India, it had lost a lot of its pizzazz. A lot of it takes a month to sail something that far. And so they began overdoing the level of hops that they would put in it so that it would still have that hoppiness and bitterness that would get lost.
So by the time it got to King George, it still had a head on it. You didn't lose.
Yeah, exactly.
And you didn't lose yours
Exactly.
for showing up late.
Exactly.
We're talking to John Markum from Willow Street Pizza and Tap Room. We're going to take just a second to show you a little video on the restaurant. Take a quick peek. I love that little video. That's great.
Absolutely.
I should do a full disclosure here is that I work with you guys from a marketing standpoint.
Absolutely.
And we produce that, but it's a terrific video. And using the Ninth Symphony, Beethoven's Ninth, it kind of gives that great European feel.
Yep.
That having been said, and this is one of the things you find endearing about me, is that I drink very expensive, very good tequila,
Right.
and awful beer.
Yes.
I just drink Budweiser.
It is a little bit of a hindrance in our relationship.
It's a hindrance,
yes.
and it's and it's very difficult for people to say, "What should I have at the tap room?" I said, "Do they have Bud?" No. So I recommend the tequila. Let's talk about what you've got. Let's talk. I know you texted me yesterday and said, how many beers should I bring? And I said 23. And you go, oh, maybe
I do have another 17 in the car.
Oh, do you really? I love that.
Didn't know how serious you were.
Talk to me about the differences and
Right.
the gamut is. Let's say in my case, and Budweiser's a lager, right?
Yes, Budweiser is
lager
technically
means
beer.
Technically beer. Yeah. What's your favorite domestic beer? If you just one of the big five or whatever.
So there are several
Can
that I
you tell
really
the
like.
difference?
Oh yeah, I can tell the difference. And me and my bar manager and most of our staff can pretty much tell what beer somebody poured by looking at it in a glass. I favor darker beers. I love. I can drink an IPA the best.
You
of them.
a
I have
big
few
Guinness
here.
guy?
No.
Okay.
No, Guinness is good for what it does.
Yeah. All right.
And it's another one of those big name beers that has a lot of popularity.
Yeah.
I got something that I would suggest as an alternative that we'll get to in a little bit.
Okay.
If you want something a little bit more local right here in San Jose.
All right.
But yeah, I like stouts, porters, bocks, ambers. Those are kind of the beers that I gravitate towards.
So something for me that let's start me out. That's a little bit more of what I'm used to.
Yes.
More of a lager.
Yes, absolutely.
What do you suggest?
Great. So just to kind of get into the ones I have here today, this first beer is called the KSA Kolsch from Fort Point Brewery. You go ahead and dig in here. Can we
Yeah, go ahead.
have
As a
some?
matter of fact, these guys were at my golf tournament, my annual Jacoby tournament, and we served that last year, and it was a real hit.
Yes. So you might be familiar with this
For
one.
golfers not to like beer, by the way, it would be a little odd. If it wasn't a hit.
Yes,
That beer
yes.
is no good. Oh, really? Go away.
Well, you'll
Anyway,
find
this
you'll,
is
you'll,
it.
you'll find with a lot. Don't be classless. There we
Okay.
go. Nice.
So,
So this is a Kolsch. I'll explain what that is here in a minute for you.
see, now I like that. And I would say, obviously, it's different than Budweiser.
Yes.
But more the aftertaste to me.
Yes. So what I find
fuller
interesting about this,
aftertaste.
so a Kolsch is basically there's two different categories of beer. There are ales and lagers. Most of the ones that you're familiar with are lagers, and it just has a difference with what kind of yeast is used and kind of what end result you get. A Kolsch is basically an ale that's pretending to be a lager. Is
Okay.
basically the safest way to describe
Okay.
that. So it's got a lot of Pilsner malts in it, which are lighter malts that just give it a good, flavorful, blonde kind of a taste. Yeah, but has kind of a floral note at the end that you
All
kind of
right.
mentioned. So I'll be a little bit less.
I did a radio show with
Yeah?
the CHP one day where we do that, where they said, and you just keep taking shots. You keep doing it. And I hope the show doesn't end the way that one did.
I'll
but
try not to be so generous with the next pour.
Thank you. That's a good move.
Excellent.
Okay, so is this like a vertical tasting?
Yes, so I kind of planned this in an order here. So if we're going to kind of keep going. This next one is called Heller High Watermelon. This is by 21st Amendment Brewery, also out of San Francisco.
Why don't you hold that up? So
Yeah,
folks-
let me
okay,
just
all
kind of
right.
get a little bit better
all right.
look at that can right there. Really fun. The thing about 21st Amendment, they've been around for a little while, and they just clearly love what they do. They have some kind of creative names for their beers. As its name sounds, this beer has a watermelon kind of a flavor to it. It is a wheat beer, and so it has kind of a smoother taste than a lot of other styles might be. Cheers.
It's rapidly turning into a 3-hour show.
I can't wait. This is going to be great.
Boy, that does have watermelon.
Yeah, so if you kind of like breathe through your nose after you take a swallow, you kind of get the watermelon flavors of that.
I haven't breathed through my nose since the 70s. But, I do like that.
Yeah.
Is that kind of a wimpy beer, though? I mean, is it kind of a girly man beer?
I was trying to play it safe. For
Yeah,
you.
but that's kind of a girly man beer, isn't it? Now,
Yeah.
come on, tell me.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, it is. It is. It is
Yeah.
a beer that if you're not ready for some of the heavier palate
Yes,
beers
yes,
that
yes.
we're about to
I would
get
have that
into.
with hummus, something really macho.
Oh
All right.
man.
All right, now we're going to move our way up. Then we're going to
So this one's called Hops of Wrath, which again is just
Hops of Wrath.
Yes.
You like that, folks?
One of the things I really love about how the craft breweries have kind of gotten on board with their marketing schemes is they've had a lot of fun with naming their
Now,
beers.
I see there's a lot of shadows in that.
A lot of shadows.
It's less opaque.
Yes, yes. So yeah, this one is an IPA, obviously. And this brewery's out of Turlock, so this one's a little bit south of us.
Okay.
But this one, as its name implies, very hoppy. As soon as you just kind of get a smell of it, that's what Cascade hops smell like right there. This is a classic, what you think of with a West Coast IPA right here.
Yeah, see, that's that to me is what I think of as when I drink a craft beer.
Absolutely. Your son would love this.
Well, yeah, my son would love it, but
Yeah.
when I think of when I drink this as Budweiser, I go, where's the Budweiser?
Nope, this is not Budweiser at all.
Pour a little bit in here.
There you
All
go.
right. So,
Are we continuing here? Is this?
sure.
All
Well,
right.
we can chat a minute while I
Yeah, take a breath.
so I can cut back on the gibberish.
Yeah.
Before we get back to that, the interesting thing about you, many of you have many interesting things, is the fact that you can come to the Willow Street Tap Room, be fed very well, drink a lot of great beer, and then be baptized because you are a pastor.
We're a full service place. Yeah,
We are.
absolutely.
We'll take care of it. You're a pastor. Tell folks where you're going tomorrow.
So I'm the pastor of Life City Church. We meet in Santa Clara High School right now, and we started the church 5 years ago. I've got a group of great people that I get to serve our community with. And tomorrow, a handful of us are flying to Kenya, doing some work out in
great.
Africa.
That's very cool.
My running thing that I've been telling my staff is the one slightly selfish thing I'm hoping for on this trip is I hope that it rains just one time.
So you can say it, right?
So for the rest of my life, I can just randomly say, I miss the rains down in Africa.
Whereas I will be at the Betty Ford Center in Palm Springs, so it works
Wonderful.
out real well for both of us.
Excellent.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank
That's
you
a
very much.
Wonderful, wonderful thing that you
Yeah,
guys
little
do.
known fact that in order to be a pastor, you have to have a working knowledge of brewing. And
Is that true?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
not
You
true.
wup here is talking
You
about it, but
made
yeah,
that
it's- I didn't make
That's
that up.
true.
Yes.
I was going to be a priest, but I couldn't drink that early. Okay, what have we moved on to now?
All right, so this next beer is from Almanac Brewing. They are out of Alameda, and this one is called Love. It's a hazy IPA.
That's this one.
Yes, in the last can here.
Okay.
Hazies are also known as New England IPAs. They're also an India Pale Ale, like we were talking about earlier. Kind of the biggest difference
Is it
between
hazy a description of the visual?
is a visual description, but it's also a different in style. So you'll notice, I mean, we didn't pour a whole bunch,
Yeah.
but it actually has kind of a cloudy kind of a
Right,
color
yeah.
to it. That's because of this two things. It's unfiltered, and hazy IPAs tend to have a flaked wheat in it also that gives it that hazy texture, hazy color. It also kind of, they play around with when they add the hops to this so that it draws out more of the fruity notes of the hops as opposed to the bitterness that you think of with a West Coast IPA. So, cheers.
That's not bad. That's less girly man.
Yes.
It's not as girly man as the watermelon.
No, this has a little bit more hair on its chest, yeah.
That's true. So I'm feeling a little better about ordering this.
Good.
I do like that.
This
That's
is,
nice.
if you want to look cool without having that big, bitter, puckery kind of
Yeah,
thing, get a hazy. You
I
look like
think
one of the cool
that
kids.
the thing that I get that turns me off is that big hop flavor.
Yes.
That's
So
just-
yeah, West Coast IPAs, like as we tend to think of them, are like known for that big punch in the face kind of a hit from the hops.
Yeah.
And if you're just not into that big, heavy bitterness, then that's just not gonna be something you want to
And
look
I'm not into dark beers. Are dark beers by definition more hoppy?
for. Not necessarily.
okay.
In fact, generally speaking, darker beers are more malty. And the last two beers we're gonna give a little taste of are kind of stepping in that direction.
Okay.
But they're not particularly bitter. Neither one of these are.
4 more of these and we'll be stepping in any direction.
Or we can just have a show that gets more and more interesting.
Actually, the room is getting hazy. No, I'm kidding. Boy, that beer is good.
This
All right, what is this?
this right here is called Boon Tambor. This is from Anderson Valley out of Boonville, California, up north of us a little ways. This is an amber beer, as its name would imply.
Okay.
So this one has caramel hops, which it's not actually caramel. It's just a description of the color that the malt's been roasted to, and it brings out some
Now,
kind of sweeter notes.
the malt and the hop, the difference between malt and hops.
Yes. So hops they're actually like a bud of a flower that's very green, very citrusy, very piney. There's some descriptions of it. And there's different kinds of hops that have more of those kinds of flavors or different flavors along those lines. When we say malts, we're generally referring to barley malt. And malt is just any grain that's been partially germinated and then stopped in that process and then roasted to different degrees.
All beers, is it all beers require malt?
No, they don't necessarily require malt, but you really kind of need that, even like with an IPA, to bring some balance to those hops.
Okay.
So, cheers.
Yeah, that's a big aftertaste.
Yes, this has a lot more on the back end of it than the front end, so you get that first sip like, oh, this is really easy drinking, and then the back end.
Yeah. Now, let's
has a
talk
lot more
about
to it.
alcohol content, so I can explain this when I get pulled
Yes.
over.
We'll Uber back to the office.
Well, yeah. What's the most you can have in this country?
Oh boy, the highest.
Is it 6.2 or something like that?
No, it's significantly higher.
Oh,
than
really?
that. Yes. So, for example, out of the beers we've just had right now, the last one we get to, I believe, is 8 and change, which we'll just have a taste.
We'll just have a taste.
This last one was 5.8, the Boon
Oh,
Tambor.
and let's put it in perspective. Coors, Budweiser's 3.2, is that it?
Yeah, maybe 3.5 for Coors Light.
Now, have you ever had Budweiser in Europe?
No, I haven't actually been to Europe yet.
Okay,
I'm
but
changing
maybe
that
you'll
this
get
week.
one
I'll step
in
into it.
Africa. But the Budweiser that's made in Europe is
Okay.
really good.
Awesome.
So
I
check that out. in
Might have
Africa.
to do that.
Is there a lot of great African beers? I mean, they've really come on. South Africa, I know, has come on with wine.
Yes, there's some good wineries in various places of Africa. I know in Ethiopia they're big into meads, honey-based. It's basically beer made with honey instead of grains. And so there's.
You ever had one?
Yeah, I have
Is
actually.
it weird or?
It's not a normal beer if that's what you're asking, but it does have a very. So the thing about honey in particular is that you think it's going to make it sweeter, but it's almost straight sucrose, and so when you ferment that, it just turns into alcohol. So you have to be really careful with the kind of yeast you introduce to that, otherwise it's just going to be like a really high ABV liquor.
We got about 8 minutes left. Let's try the
Beautiful.
last one. And
This last one is right here in San Jose. This is Hermitage Brewing's 2-ton Imperial Stout. It's going to pour really thick, as you'll see. It's going to be a very dark kind of a beer. I'm just going to give you a splash of that.
reminds me when we were in high school, we drink molasses.
Yeah, it kind of has that.
Take
kind
a
of
long time to do a shot.
Kind of has that color of it. I believe this guy is 8%, maybe 8 point something. No, I'm sorry, 9%.
Oh, good, 9%. Cheers.
Cheers. This one has, you mentioned molasses and the kind of look of it. It actually has some kind of molasses kind of notes to it in terms of flavor that you probably get.
I miss the pancakes with that.
Yeah, yeah. well, if you're really desperate, this is one of those things that you kind of like
big.
pour
That
over your pancakes.
Really is big. Now, obviously, you don't drink these like you drink the beers I drink.
So the kind of beers
Two or
that
three of these, you're flying the economy.
Yes,
That's good.
yes. So most of the beers, if you're used to drinking kind of the general American lager style beers that you're familiar with, you're just crushing two or three or four at a time. With this last one, for example, this isn't one that I would suggest that with. One, that's a lot of alcohol. Two, even aside from that, it's really thick. I mean, this fills you up.
It does.
If you drink a pint of that.
Although we don't serve it, it's a little bit like deep dish pizza. You know,
Yeah.
you have one slice, you go, that'll
Like
do it.
done. I need a nap. Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. So this is very much the same way. And that's one of the things about craft beer too. Like if you're looking at wasted off of a lot of these kind of craft beers, this probably is the far more expensive.
I understand, folks. So we're not joking. We mentioned Uber because it's these kind of people keep Uber in business, and it's the best thing in the world to do that. I don't want to give the food short shrift because it's so good over there in Willow Glen. Give me a couple of items on the menu that are pub food oriented that you wouldn't find in Los Gatos.
Excellent. So probably our most popular item that is along those lines is our shrimp and bacon tacos.
Oh.
And we just loved the idea of bringing in something that was like a Mexican street food kind of thing.
And you serve that every day?
Every day, lunch and dinner. Absolutely.
If I catch traffic. Go ahead.
We also have a New York strip steak with gremolata, garlic and parsley kind of a thing that's just, and capers. It's really nice that you'll find only at Willow Street. And there's a handful of others.
Well, Willow Street Pizza and Tap Room. It's marvelous. 16 beers on tap. Great pub menu. We're so happy to be involved with the Willow Street family of restaurants, and they're delighted that they sponsor Jazz Tonight. Willow Street, Los Gatos, the Tap Room, and home of the Better Burger, Main Street Burgers. Thank you, my friend. It's good to have you.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Anybody that comes on the show and brings me liquor, you may get invited back.
I appreciate the opportunity.
And a safe trip to Africa, and
Thank you very much.
God bless you for what you're doing.
That means a lot to me. Thank you.
That's Jazz Tonight. As we're getting down, there are 3 more concerts, and by the time you folks see this at home, there may only be a couple of left. Next week, Roberta Gambarini, who's one of the great talents in our business, won the Thelonious Monk competition, and is our Chet Baker tribute. Season continues. We will end, as is our wont, our last concert with a party. Last year we had Pete Escovedo, and this year we have the Funky Godfather with a tribute to James Brown. So get ready on August 21st. That's Jazz Tonight. Until next time, I'm Jacoby. I'll see you soon.